is shot in the leg, and this is my son, Spotted Snake. Now you may know us by other names. I go by another name during the day. I'm one of those infamous school teachers. Ooh, I'm even worse than that. I'm a special ed teacher. Ooh, that's even worse. Okay. Now we understand that you guys have just gone through your Western studies. And so what we are brought here today is some of the actual artifacts. Some of these are actual, and some of these are reproductions. And we'll just go through them one at a time and show you, because as you study history, it's so much nicer and so much easier if you can see the actual things that were used by the mountain men. And we're going to talk a little about the mountain men and the different things that they used. Now, we also know we're not going to dwell a lot on the history of it, because you guys have already gone through that. We're going to talk about the equipment and how the equipment was used. And then those people who had volunteered for us, we have something special for you right at the end. Now, probably the most things that people have an interest in when it comes to mountain men and what they did are the firearms that they used. And you can see that we've got 4 different types of long guns and 2 different types of short guns or handguns. Now, every one of these guns represent a different time period in the development of firearms that the mountain men used. Now, I'm going to see how smart you guys are. Let's go back. What years were the very first mountain men coming out here to the western states? What years?
1820s?
Yeah, around that area, early 1820s, and we knew that they were after, what was the main animal they were after? Hands. Yes. The beaver. What was the reason for the beaver? They wanted to get the beaver for the meat? Yeah, for the fur. Okay. Now, the hat I've got on here is a fur hat. This is made out of a rabbit fur. And what they do, they boil the hides down, and then they pound them flat. And if you take a look around the edge, can you see those little pegs that held it all around? Okay, now the beaver hats weren't made in this style. They were made in the big top hat. Mr. Roche, is that his name?
Ralph.
Ralph. Ooh, excuse me. Deutsch is not. Okay. He had a top hat on that is similar to the beaver hats, but that one was also made out of a rabbit fur, so a rabbit felt, so it's not similar to it. So that is the reason they came west, both individually and as groups, for the beaver. Now, where do you think most of these mountain men came from originally when they were first recruited? Go ahead.
France.
France? Okay. So do I have to put a French hat on? Okay, this is a French hat. Do you know what they call the French ones? What do they call the French mountain men? Parlez-vous français?
Ooh la la.
Okay. Je suis français, le mountain man, le grand mountain man, actually. Voyageur. Did you ever hear of the voyageurs? Okay, they called them voyageurs, and this was the typical hat that the voyageurs wore. And these were the type of hats that they wore in the late 1700s and the early 1800s in France. Now they were hats that showed something, particularly. They showed the province that they came from in France, the area that they came from in France, and they also, see all these little things I've got on here? Okay, as they would do particular activities or earn certain badges or become proficient in something, they would attach these two here. This is made out of an antler of a deer that I shot.
He also carved it.
Yeah, I carved it, and everybody says it looks like Castle Grayskull. It's not. I mean, that's moved too modern. This little alabaster bear, and they would have different things hanging on there. And this was the voyageur's hat. Okay, so there were a lot of Frenchmen. Were there any other nationalities that came? Okay, a lot of English, but a little north from England, still in Great Britain. What kind of a hat would this have been? What is it? Aye, that's true, lad. They would wear this kind of a hat, wouldn't they, if they come from Scotland? And there were a lot of them that come over now. That we've got a bit of connection there, haven't we? Spotted Snake. That's true. A lot of them would come over from Scotland and they thought like this. The only reason I could remember, like I thought like this, because I had a grandma that raised me during the war. It wasn't the Civil War either, so don't say that. It was the Second World War. A lot of Scotties came over, and they would wear these are called Tamashads. And these were the type of hats that they would wear. Either they would wear it would show the district they were from, or they would wear the military kind. Okay? Any other types that came over? Oh, there might have been a few Irish. Got to think southern United States for these. This is the type of hat that I have on. You can't tell them. New Mexico, Arizona, Father Escalante, Spain. Yes, there were a lot of Spanish. My Spanish is not too good, so I will not speak the Spanish too much if I already have like these. But that is true. A lot of them around in the Santa Fe, New Mexico, Phoenix, Arizona, and that area were Spanish mountain men. So there was a big diversity of the different mountain men that came. So now let's talk a little about the different weapons that they brought and some of the problems that they ran into. Now you said that was the 1820s when they first come. Now a lot of these mountain men came out of a couple of states in the eastern states, and if you've ever seen these type of rifles, now this is a reproduction. Who knows what reproduction means? Can't call you all the time. What is a reproduction mean?
It was made, it wasn't the real thing they used, but it was made to look on.
Exactly. It's made from patterns or from an old gun, right? Okay. Anybody knows what this type of rifle is called? Because when the mountain men first came west, most of them carried this rifle. It's very typical if you take a look at it. What's the most striking feature of this gun? The first thing you notice, the length of the barrel. It's a 40-inch barrel. That's a long, long thing. Anything else that you notice about this gun? Down here, you have the fanciness on the handle. Okay, anything else you notice?
The lock.
The lock. What kind of a lock is this? Yes, here. What kind of a lock is this? Do you know? Yeah.
Matchlock?
Not a matchlock. That was even earlier than that. What?
Flint?
A flintlock. This is a flintlock gun. Now, although it's big and long, it's really quite light. And when they came out west, they carried them. If you take a look at the stock, can you see how short the stock is and how it drops real fast? Now, they came armed with these, and back in Pennsylvania, Tennessee, back in New England, these rifles were very, very adequate for what they needed. One of the people that came through asked me if these were known to be accurate, and they were extremely accurate guns. Because the longer the barrel, the bullet would stay longer in the barrel when it came out, and the longer the sight picture, you had a better accuracy. But they ran into some problems when they got out there with these weapons. There was a couple of animals and some other things that caused them problems. What do you think they'd have difficulty with this type of gun?
Shoot a bear.
What kind of bear particularly?
A grizzly bear.
A grizzly bear. Very true. Dangerous animal, a grizzly bear. There was another type of animal that they had a real difficult time using this kind of a gun. Yeah.
Wolf?
No, bigger animal.
Mountain lion.
Well, mountain lions, yeah, they could have trouble. This is a one with big antlers on it. Buffalo, right. Okay, the mountain man saw some buffalo, but in the mountains there's another animal that's big and huge.
Moose.
And what is the Indian name for him? Wapiti. You know what that is? Sure. Not quite a moose.
Jacob. Elk.
An elk. They found these guns pretty difficult to kill, these big game, with one shot, because you know these are just a one-shot gun. You have to load everything inside the barrel before they shoot. And we will do that. We'll give you a demonstration on that. This was a flintlock, okay? Now there was another problem. When you're riding a horse and you're in a real heavy forest, what are some of the problems you'd run into in a big gun like this? This there. Yeah, it was just a very clumsy gun, but very accurate. So this is a Pennsylvania or Tennessee flintlock rifle, okay? Now, a A lot of the young kids your age, when they came out later in the years, or even if some of them came with the mountain men, or if they were raised in the South and the East, they had a gun like this. Eric's going to show you his particular gun. This is another reproductive gun. Now, how can you see that this gun is different from this gun? It's short, right. Of course, it's made for a young person. It's short. Okay, anything else different with the stock? Yes, Derek?
It has metal on the
Yeah, the stock, this is called a half stock, and this is called a full stock. Can you see how the stock goes all the way up to the end there? Okay, now this is Eric's own rifle. It's a little .32 caliber. He shoots pretty good with it. In fact, in March, we're going down to the St. George area and compete in the Mountain Man contest, and Eric will be shooting against other kids his age to see how well he can compete in the Mountain Man contest in shooting. And all of these guns that we have do shoot. Now, this is called a Squirrel Rifle, and it was the kids' responsibility when they lived at home to provide pot meat. Who knows what pot meat might be? Sure.
like stew meat, like rabbit or squid.
Hey, exactly, right, right. The kids would do that, and so this is known as a squirrel gun. This is another very accurate gun. It shoots quite well, and I think this will be the one that we'll try to shoot off in there.
Okay. Which one is kids?
Pardon?
Yeah, what do you do?
Well, how about you do it later? Okay, okay, good time.
I was thinking that was three.
No, like she said, we'll shoot in here because we'll go that loud. Okay. Now, somebody walked by and saw this gun. It's not a muzzleloader. It's a breech loader. This is just a little less, a little older, a little younger than the muzzleloader times. But this is an authentic gun. And let me kind of give you a history of this gun, okay? Now this gun was built, this is a real gun that goes back, it was built about the 1850s, okay? Just a little later than when the pioneers came. Okay, it's a 12-gauge shotgun. It's been made in France. Okay, it's got the cocking hammers on it, just like the other guns had. It opens up from the breech like this, but instead of shooting shotgun shells like you guys shoot today, it shot brass cases about this big, and the person just carried a whole bunch of brass cases in his pocket and made them up one at a time, just like you make up a muzzleloader. They'd have to put powder and a wad and shot and then another wad over it and then a primer, and then they put the brass cases in there and they would close it up and they'd be able to shoot. Now, how many kids have ever been to Alpine? Who knows where Alpine is? Yeah, if we just walked right over the canyon here, Corner Canyon, it'd be an Alpine. This gun was bought by Eric's, go back, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather in St. Louis, Missouri in about 1853 when they came out here and settled in Alpine. So we didn't get very far from where we all started. There's still heathy graves and some of the old homestead areas are over there. But this is an original, and this was used for a lot of years to hunt with. Now it's kind of loose in here, and you have to be very careful with it. You don't shoot this anymore. But this is one of the original guns. A lot of the mountain men carried shotguns because they were very powerful, very close in, great for shooting birds. You could even shoot game with them if you got close enough to them. But a lot of them carried shotguns. Now, all the problems they had with the big long gun. And could a mountain man survive with a kid's squirrel gun? No, no. This is what developed. This was the next type of gun that came out. So this is another reproduction of think anybody knows what these are called? No, not a buffalo rifle. You're thinking quickly. It's a Hawkins. Exactly. There were two brothers in St. Louis, Missouri that could, when the mountain men would come back in the 1820s and complain about how they couldn't kill these animals outright and how some of them were getting mauled and killed by the grizzlies. These two Hawken brothers, Scottish people, were very smart to figure out we've got to come up with a gun that will fit the requirements. Now, you can see how it's different. It's a lot heavier. The barrel's a lot heavier. The configuration on the stock is different. It's got double triggers just like the other one have. Those are set triggers, so if you're target shooting, you press this one and it makes it like it's a hair trigger so it goes off. But they're very, very rugged. If you take a look down the barrel, can you see how big these are? Can you see how big they are? Okay, Eric, why don't you show the end of your gun compared to what this one looks like?
Don't point at me.
There. Okay, these Hawken guns would start about a 36 caliber. That's a 32 caliber. But they would start clear up to the big calibers. And these are what these lead balls are. If you take a look here, these were the standard size of the lead ball we shot. Because they just didn't take a bullet out of their pocket and put it in the gun, did they? They had to build it right inside the gun. This little one down here is a 45 caliber. We need to make a new block because we have... Yeah, get one of yours out there. I can show how small the 32 is. The next one up is a 50. And that was just about minimum what a mountain man thought he could get by with. The next one up is a 54 caliber. And the next one up is a 58 caliber. And they love to have those big 58s because that's a lot of lead to shoot at an animal or even to protect yourself against other human beings. Now, if you take a look at a 32, can you see how small it is? Now, if any of your parents or you guys own a 30-30, you think it's a big gun until you take a look at it. So you see what it is when you compare it to that. Okay, so thing to remember about the big rifles is that they needed something big, heavy, and powerful. What would happen with this big heavy gun if you shot the one shot that you had and either wounded the animal or didn't wound it? What could you still do with it? Whack them with it. Exactly. Exactly. That's why they made it nice and big so that you can whack with it. Because if your life is on the line, you can whack with it. Okay? Now, I'll go down the line and show you what some of these other little things are that go with it. And as we come along, if you have any questions, let me know, okay? When you start to load your gun, and Eric will go through a loading here in just a minute, this is called a bullet starter. When you load one of these guns, you have to put powder down the barrel, tap it so that it will settle, a patch, they all had a patch around them, cloth patch. The ball went on top of the cloth patch. This is what the ball would look like in here. Females one. This is what the ball would look like. I got a patch right here. Okay, Eric's got a patch too. Okay, you would put the patch in your mouth. Get it nice and wet.
Spit on it.
If you were going to go hunting, and for a long time you'd put bear grease on it or goose grease or something. That's what made it go down. These patches don't taste the best. I could make them in if I could make meat patches. The ball would go on top, and then it would start down the barrel. Now the ball would be a little smaller than the barrel so it would fit. And you'd start it all the way down with this. Then you take your ramrod out, take it all the way down to the bottom. Then it had a little percussion cap with flint that would make it go off. We'll give you a demonstration on that too. Now, they carried the balls with them in a lot of different kind of pouches. This is just a ball pouch here. It's made out of leather. This is another ball patch here, or a ball carrier. It's made out of rawhide that sits around your neck. This contains a 45 caliber ball for the pistol over here. This is just another copy, and then the little key here that I've got from the arrow on it that lock it off. They carried their powder in a lot of different ways. This is an elk horn powder carrier that Eric and I built out of an actual elk horn that a friend of mine gave me. This carries enough powder in it that you can go out hunting with it all day long. Pour your powder directly out. But you see how the natural elk horn makes it really nice? We had to drill out here and drill in the bottoms so that it would carry the powder. Now, I think I carried that much powder in this? Okay. Yeah, they could be a wine. This is a old boot bag, college days time. Then they changed it, but I'll tell you what I use this for. I have another shotgun at home, a black powder shotgun, and I carry shotgun wads in here. And I just carry it around here, and it looks kind of old and authentic. And I carry the shotgun wads in there, and they're already greased up to shoot. Okay. Everybody looked at this and couldn't figure out what the heck it was. What do you think that is? The caps are in it, right. And why do you think it's made out of brass? No, they wouldn't come out of a steel one, but why do you think they're made out of brass? No? Class in physics.
It is easier to fit.
What is it you got inside of it?
Okay, but these are, no, like on the end of a bullet, the primer cap that you hit, what does it do when it goes off? It explodes, so there'd be some powder in there. Why don't you think I would want to have this made out of iron or steel? Because it would do what? It would spark, okay? Most of the things that you see here are made out of non-iron or non-ferrous, because the mountain men themselves used to make the fires by sparking. Okay? Let's show you what they have here. You ever gone to Mountain Man Rendezvous and seen use a flint and steel? Okay. This is a flint and steel, and we hope it works.
Yeah, we hope.
When they were, they couldn't carry matches with them all the time, could they? So they would carry a flint and steel. If you take a good look, we'll see if we can get this to spark, okay? Ah, you see that? See that? Okay. You'd hit the metal part, and what you see in the spark is a piece of the iron coming off, okay? Yes, sir. Boy, this is as good as it's ever done. Okay. Look at that. Okay, that's how they made it. That's called the flint and steel. Now here's another type of powder flask that they carry. This is more of a military type of powder flask. This one had a measure on it, so all we had to do was click this over, turn it down. Now this isn't my gun, so if it doesn't work, I can blame the front. Okay, here is the Flintlock, and we'll go through priming it. Now, there's a lot of words in the English language that are based on this rifle, and a lot of things that we use today. Maybe not as much nowadays, but you hear them all the time in the movies. Okay, you ever heard the thing "don't go off half-cocked"? No. Okay. If you have cocked a gun, it doesn't shoot. Nothing happens. People thought half-cocked make your half-cocked so much. It means don't go off half-cocked. Have you ever heard them talk about if you made a deal and it was a good deal, you sold it lock, stock, and barrel? You had to have all three parts to make a gun work. What is the head of a cattle drive called that pushes the cattle drivers and all? So that the boss sometimes is called a ramrod, right? This is a ramrod. Ramrod puts everything together and pushes it. Okay. So some of these were made on that. Okay, we'll go through the name of these. And all of them have French names. This is called a frisson. See this little piece of metal? Just like the metal that I struck with the flint. This is a frisson. So we bend the frisson back and it exposes a pan. Now what the pan does, we fill a little powder in there, and then there's a hole that goes directly into the barrel. So you load it down from this end, and what would happen, the flint should strike the frisson, send a spark off, send a flash in the pan. Now that's another one. See, you ever heard of guys a flash in the pan? That means that all it did was flash, it didn't set the gun up. So, here we go. Let's see what it works. Little black powder in there. Close the frisson. Okay, you guys ready to see if this works? See? No, I want to do it again because I got to clean this. But see how you can put that down by tender, that puts off a big flash. There. Okay. When Eric shoots his gun, you'll see the difference between this one and okay? Ooh, do you smell that smell? Rotten egg yet, you gotta get used to it. How much
That's why we
time,
did it in Mrs. John's room.
how much time do you have left? Okay. We'll go through these kind of quickly. We'll
Don't
show
get
you.
opportunities like this. We're in no hurry.
Okay. Now, these are the percussion caps, and these are carried around your neck when we compete. When Eric and I go out and compete and shoot at different matches, there's different ones where you shoot at small targets, you shoot at targets that are divided, you see how many you can get in a length of time. There's a group shoot. Eric's got a more modern one that's made out of nylon, and this one's made out of brass so they can put the caps on. Now here's the neat thing. When you're pouring powder, you should never pour directly from a powder flask into the barrel, especially that second shot. Why don't you think you should do that? Well, it would be a bomb because there's always some sparks left. Did you see how I blew down that barrel after I shot this thing here? Okay. After you have ignition or the gun shoots, there can always be some glow spark down there, and you should blow down the barrel to kill that spark. So if I didn't blow down that barrel and I had this thing full of black powder and I'm pouring it down the barrel, it's just like holding onto a bomb. And a lot of people that are inexperienced had problems with that. Now, to take care of that, you had powder measures. Now, Eric, you got your powder measure? He'll show you the powder measure that he uses for his 32. And I'll show you a powder measure here made out of a particular thing. These were made, see, his is made out of brass, again, and it's adjustable. Who thinks they know what this is made out of? What? It's bones, and what kind of bone? This is a fun project you guys can make right after Thanksgiving. It's a turkey bone. This is a turkey wing bone. And a lot of them are made that way. Now, this is a key that I've got hung on here that's from Scotland back in the 1800s. This is sort of a little fun thing to have. And it gives me a little counterweight because I can stick it through here like this. And then it will hang when I'm doing it. But this is a turkey bone. And we saved a turkey bone about 4 years ago and dried it. We've got a couple of turkey bones at home now, still drying. It takes all winter long to dry out. Then you clear out the marrow and you cut it according to how much you want it. And that measures out there about 60 grains, which is a real good target bone. Okay.
Another reason for pouring like that is so you'd always have the same type of charge. So you
Right, so you knew where you're, to make your bullet go farther, you either put more powder or you elevate your rifle. Now, they have a maximum. You can't go beyond so much. You just can't keep adding powder because it'll become dangerous. Usually, the best rule of thumb is the most accurate powder charge is the same caliber as your gun. 50 caliber, 50 grains of powder. 60 caliber, whatever. Eric shoots about 30, actually. Let me go through the rest of the table, honey, and then we'll let you shoot. Okay. Now, what are these? Traps, right. These were very essential to them, weren't they? These are some old traps. Did you bring them to the school or your other school?
I brought it to
Okay, maybe one day we'll let Eric bring these and set them. They cut pencils in half really well. I don't want to set it, thank you. But these are the type of traps that they use. Okay, this is another bullet starter that I have, one that I made. You have a short starter and a long starter, and we'll about 2 more minutes here. We'll walk through and show you how that's done. This is what you call a parfletch. And when you're out on the range shooting, you can wear a big belt and you put this parfletch in it. Can you see something that's different about this? Well, there's 2 pockets on it, but what's different from one pocket to the other? Okay, why do you think we put the pocket on the inside? Yes, Dave? Well, no, I put my comb and my brush in there and my hairspray.
What comb? What hair?
I know. No, who do you think would go one way or the other? Okay, you can put your goodies in there, okay, your money or your wallet or whatever, and then this hangs out here on the other side. You can put a ball in there. Now, Eric's got another thing that we wear. Stand up, Eric. He's going to show you the possible bag. Okay? Why do you think they called it a possibles bag? That's right. Everything in it you could possibly carry in it.
That's where good purses came from.
And when you go to a rendezvous and shoot, it's called working out of the bag. You have to shoot just like the old mountain man did. You can't have everything set up in little containers. We have some other guns that we hunt animals with. Eric and I go deer hunting together, and we've shot about 10 deer over the last 12 years with muzzle. And it's really quite an exciting hunt. You have to get very close and be very accurate with them.
And you have to take your wife.
You have to take your rifle off. Good, okay. Now here's another, a lot of the mountain men would carry things like this. This is called a Moses stick. Any reason I call it a Moses stick? Yeah, he had a stick like that. This is cut out of an elk antler. You can see I've cut in, this is supposed to be the north wind and the south wind that I've cut in here with a Dremel tool. This is a piece of wormwood that we found up Mule Hollow up in Brighton when my wife and I first were going together years ago. This is just a turkey feather that's been dyed like a hot feather. And this is a little bird head that I've carved. And these are family colors. These are kind of interesting. Anybody have any idea what this is? Not rabbit.
Not rabbit.
That's where those went.
No, a little smarter than we. No.
Carter.
What do women watch? What kind of color? Yes, these are mink tails. Now, that's about as much mink as I can afford. One's a tourmaline, which is the black one, and the other is the silver gray. These are mink. And I carry this sometimes when I'm hunting. What do you think this would work really well for?
Fishing.
Fishing.
Okay, it holds the guns if I shoot it. Okay? And there are some mountain man contests where we have long shoots where you set this in the ground. That's why I have a nail in it. Set it in the ground, and I put a little piece of leather in there, put the rifle in there, and then I can lean out and shoot maybe 100 yards with it. You could. You could. I just drilled a hole. Okay. Very essential tool. What is this?
For haircuts.
Not a hatchet, but one Indian name. Okay, the tomahawk. Now this is a throwing hawk, and part of the things that we have at the contest we go to is throwing. But this is a very special hawk. Can you see something very different about it? Can opener? Well, the mountain man got out there and got the can of beans out. It's a notch. And this is sharpened like notch. Let's see how good you guys are in modern history. Have you ever heard of the Gurkhas? The Gurkha tribe, they're from the Indian Army. They have knives, great big Gurkha knives that make a big curve like that, and they have a notch on it. It has a ceremonial meaning to it. It's called a blood notch. Now, this is a copy of a Cheyenne blood notch tomahawk. And the tomahawk stayed in the case all the time that the Cheyenne warrior was wearing. And it was only removed from his belt or from his case to be used for protection or for cutting up meat or whatever. And the steel always had to taste blood before it went back into the case or into the belt. And that's a blood notch. And if it was ever drawn in anger, so this is some of the controls that the Indians had on themselves about the fight amongst themselves. If it was ever drawn on anger and not used as it was supposed to, they had to take their thumb and prick their thumb so that it drew blood to go back into the case. So that's called blood notch. That's part of their religion. You try to explain religion to people sometimes, it's very difficult. Well, what they did, they never took it out unless they needed it. Okay? That was a good control. Now, not only a tomahawk, that a mountain man would usually carry two types of knives with them when they went. And these are both reproductions of the type of knife. This type of knife here, if you take a look, all of them carry the type of knife like this. Can you see this here? Oh, what was the animal that they had to work with the most? Beavers. This is a skinning knife. It looks just like a butcher knife, doesn't it? Now this is an old carbon steel blade from England. Can you see how dark it is? Carbon steel has a lot of carbon in it. It's not a stainless steel knife. This is the old type of butcher knife. These were the best knives that they could use. They were inexpensive to use, and they came from England, most of them. Inexpensive to use. But they also carried another type of knife with them that they would carry into the wilderness like this. What do you think this knife was used for? It looks real like a Bowie knife. Now this is a reproduction here. This is a Capote. This is a World War II Marine knife that I fixed up so it looks like a mountain man knife. But this was the type of blade they had a fighting knife. They had a skinning knife and a fighting knife with them. If you can see how the fighting knife is different, it has an edge on the bottom, it has an edge on the top, and it has grooves in here. You know what these grooves are called? Blood grooves, right? Because when it goes into a person or an animal, the suction on the blade would keep it in there, and that's why they had to have a hair trap in there, so you could pull it back out again. I know that's gory, but that's how they were built. Because they had to use their knives constantly all the time. Now, if you look on the back of this knife, I've got something written there. Anybody Scandinavian? You are? You speak Norwegian? Kan du snakke norsk? Okay. They always had some kind of a dedication put on. This is another mountain man tradition. Maybe it came from the Indians. This said, "Do their liebe." This is God is life. And they would put on some kind of a dedication on the backside of the blade or the backside of the sheath, so that it was just a dedication to the knife to remember that only to use a knife in defense too. Okay. Now we'll get down to the fun guns. Maybe we ought to shoot this one. Okay, now handguns. Most of the mountain men carried a handgun with them. This is a little pistol. These are only one-shotters again, okay? This is a little percussion gun. Now, this is quite a long barrel, and they would carry either one or two of these pistols. These type of pistols go back all the way to the Revolutionary time. You know, when, who was it that, Paul who?
Paul
Okay, Paul Revere. This is the style of pistol that Paul Revere had, except his weren't percussion caps, they were Flintlocks. But they would carry two of these across the horn of the saddle. Okay, anybody had a father or a mother or a friend in the military police? The MPs? You ever seen the symbol of the MPs? There's two of these crossed, two of these pistols crossed. It goes all the way back. This is the gun we'll shoot off, I think. You got it? So you hang on to that. Now, a lot of them would carry small little gun like this. Okay, Eric, you tell them the story behind it. Eric's going to tell you a little about the story behind that.
It's kind of a replica of Philadelphia Derringer. Lincoln was assassinated with. You have to get pretty close to shoot anything you shoot. Now, I've shot this off before. I was about foot from the target, totally missed the target.
Very inaccurate little gun, but gamblers or assassins would carry these little guns before the revolver guns were invented. It's called the Philadelphia Derringer because it was made in Philadelphia. Short barrel. But that is an exact copy of the type of gun assassinated President Lincoln. Are you ready to go to press now? You want to shoot? Yeah! Well, before we shoot, I want to tell you about the modern things that happen. A bunch of us people get together and we love to dress up in our funny clothes. We go to the rendezvous and we go shoot and we try to go back in time to the 1820s, 1830s, 1840s. And enjoy it. We cook over an open fire. We don't have any modern conveniences. So we have friends that have TVs and all.
Not really.
But there is one event that mostly happens every time we go to a mountain man rendezvous. And I'm going to need your hat again, please, if I may. Now, this is where the people who volunteered will come in, and I'm going to need both a girl and a boy for this. We'll let the teachers do it.
Malia and Jacob.
Okay. Should we get over here if we got a little more room? Now, this is a replica. Can you see this here? This was built, this was made by Pam, my wife, Eric's mom. And this is a replica of a particular kind of dress that is in the Northwest Mountie collection in Fort McLeod, California. I mean, not California, Canada, excuse me, Alberta. It is called a Mackenzie River wedding dress. We're going to have a mountain man wedding. Okay, that's the dress.
I'll be your best man.
The cap goes with it, okay? Now,
Wake up, buddy. You wait.
this is the coat worn by the mountain men in the wintertime. It's kind of French thing. It's called a capote, and it's made out of one complete blanket. So we'll have the groom put on the
Put on the hood. Put on the hood. Put on the hood.
And the groom always has to have a top hat to get married in, doesn't he?
It looks like a robe. It looks like a
Okay, now usually it's an Indian chief. It's an Indian chief that will do this. So we have the bride and the groom here.
Give me the Bible.
I love it.
Now they would have a different ceremony. That would be like, we are gathered here under the mantle of the great spirit to join together this man named Jacob, and this woman named Malia. She doesn't seem too happy. Holy matrimony, and this wedding will only last until the class is over. And then we would bind you with secret symbols. Now what we're going to do, we're going to give Malia this key. Malia, would you like to have a key to this moment? So it goes back to about 1860. Now what you can do, Malia, is each maybe a nice piece of leather or something. Not all in there. Let's give these guys.
Oh, Jacob, you made this surprise.
No, okay, where's all the presents then? I mean, really, you guys bring them. Okay, we're going to go through now a shoot, okay? We'll do the right. Okay. Eric's going to go through.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, listen up now. We're going to walk through this one at a time. Eric wants me to make sure he gets this right. Okay, now, first thing you got to do, you got to shoot a cat. Okay. Now, first thing you do when you load a rifle, you hope it is unloaded, and we know these are because we've checked them. But the first thing he does, he cocks the hammer back all the way. Okay, he's going to put a cap on. Why are you going to put a cap on?
So, make sure there's
Okay, well, to make sure that, of course, it isn't loaded, but also after you clean these guns, you use oil on them, And when you use oil on them, some oil could collect down at the bottom, because what has to happen when that goes off, the fire has to go through a flash hole and into the barrel to set off the powder, and it has to make a right angle. Just boom like that. So he's going to set up a count. You guys want to count for him when he sets it off? Okay, we'll go to 3. We'll go to 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay, hurry, that bear's coming. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, did you see him made the flash? Now he's going to cock the hammer back all the way, blow down the barrel, blow down the barrel. You have to blow down the barrel.
Ooh, and that's so fun when you've got that powder in there and it tastes like rotten eggs.
Okay, now that's clear. Now you want to walk through what you're going to do now? Eric, why don't you get over here? Okay, he'll turn this way. Okay. So what's the first thing you're going to do?
Try shooting 30 grains or
Oh, just a little teeny. Let's do 4 episodes.
Jacob.
Okay, what are we doing with this? What are we putting in it? Why are you tapping?
Notice how he taps on his foot, not on the ground, so it doesn't cause damage to the rifle.
Right, so you don't goof up the
They're quite good.
Mint flavored patch.
No, these aren't. Well, 11 flavor attached.
Now, if he was going to put a bullet, he'd put a bullet on top of that patch and start with that little shorty there. See, the Indians had just as much difficulty because they had just a simple. After years, you get pretty good. Same kind, yeah. So.
They use arrows.
You see how tight that fit?
That's without the bullet.
That's without the bullet.
Imagine how that fits with the bullet.
Now he's taking it all the way down. He has to put it really tight against the powder. If you have an air gap in there, it just wouldn't work too well. Okay.
Now, are there reasons for letting go of the ramrod?
He bounces the ramrod because when it seeks the ball, it would bounce up. That's another way of learning how to do it.
This way. That way. This way. That way. That way. Shoot up. You should put the bullet on it then. Shoot it right where the gun's
shoot it that much though. Tastes terrible. Tastes like it smells.
We'll see if we can give everybody a round ball to take home for your own, okay? We have enough there. Have you teach your own